Good morning, everyone. I'm not quite calling the meeting to order yet, but I want a big shout-out thank you to all those choir members and musicians and directors today. What did you think? It was awesome. So Sandy, thank you. Sandy, thank you for directing this choir today. It was amazing. It was amazing. Wouldn't this be nice to see more of this? A couple of other things before we officially call our meeting to order. A few acknowledgments and thank yous. So as you may or may not have noticed, our newest visitor to Mount Calvary, that Sue is holding, we welcome Serenity. So congratulations, Star, on your daughter. And it certainly has been a busy year, busy season of things unfolding for Mount Calvary. There's a lot that's been going on. A lot of people who've stepped up in so many ways. I don't know how many have noticed outside, but the cross on top of the church has been, well, not replaced, but fixed, I should say. Shortened. It has been shortened. So a big thank you to Dave Tanger for all the work. That was no small job, right? To get that very big cross off the top of the building. And we're glad we did this in the time we did it. As it turns out, it really wasn't as fastened as securely to the building as we would have liked, so it was time. One of my favorite things to hear from Dave is, I know a guy. I know someone. And sure enough, he went to A1 to do the work on getting the cross down. How do you get it out off? How do you get up to the building? So he found a tree trimmer outfit to get the scaffolding. Found somebody to get the brackets and get the holes drilled. Who then said, when Dave asked him what the charge was, who says, "Oh, well, you're a church. I'm not even going to charge you for it." A1, who did all the work for us, says, in the end, "Oh, I'm going to knock $1,000 off your bill." Dave knows a person who can do the finishing on the cross, gets that done, so that was at no cost, I believe. You were looking for someone to do it at no cost to the church. So a big job, a lot of work, and Dave does an awesome job in being good stewards of our money. I appreciate that. Also want to acknowledge Roxy here. So Roxy, as you know, has been a very big help and volunteering a great many of her hours to lead in worship planning for Mount Calvary. A lot of people have their hands in planning the worship, but she's been the core here of leading us in a very strong way, and in a way that, quite honestly, the Synod looks at and says, Mount Calvary, you have something very special here that other churches don't have, and you should be aware of that and acknowledge that. And you know what? You are leaders. You are leaders in how you are doing worship today in the environment that you're doing it. That is in no small part to all the work and effort that Roxy has led us in. There was some discussion. In fact, Kathy Kowalski came to council and said, for all the work she's doing and how important it is to Mount Calvary, we should be paying her. And council did have a long discussion about how that might work and our finances and how that does or doesn't, whether we can or cannot afford it. But in the end, Roxy, we do have something for you. For all the work that you've done for us for this past year in leading us to where we are, council did vote to present you a stipend of $2,000 because we want to acknowledge all the work that we have.
I'd like to say thank you to the council, to you, the members.
Step up to the mic, please.
I'd like to say thank you to the council, to the members, for your very unexpected, generous gift. It is my honor and my privilege to serve you and help you. And in reality, it's not about me, it's about God working through you guys is what's making all this work.
And for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, we're not done with Roxy. We are a congregation right now that I would describe as lay-led and clergy-supported. One of the ways the Synod has defined how to help congregations who are in transition, as we are, is a new position, if you will, and it's called a synodically authorized minister. It's a mouthful. Synodically authorized minister, SAM, referred to as SAM, which is a layperson who has gone through certain criteria. They've finished lay school, they've taken some additional courses, they've gone through the candidacy process. And when that is done, that person is authorized to perform sacraments, preside over communion, if you will, for that congregation. Roxy has said that she is on that path. Council has lifted her up and recommended her to the Synod to go down this path to become a SAM. We initially thought, because the requirements were you have to complete lay school plus take the additional coursework, Roxy is in the process of going through lay school, but she's not yet done. She has more coursework to do, plus that additional coursework on top of that. We were anticipating the earliest she could actually become a SAM for Mount Calvary was a year from now, 2025. Well, it turns out things change, and the Synod has now said they are willing to provisionally authorize Roxy to be a SAM for Mount Calvary as she completes her coursework. Roxy has begun the application process. It's a pretty rigorous application process. There's a number of interviews that she needs to go through. There's a candidacy approval she needs to go through. There's a psych evaluation she needs to go through. But having said all that, she may be authorized as early as the next 2 to 3 months to become a SAM for Mount Calvary. So that's amazing. What does that mean for us exactly? We got to figure that out yet because this is so new. And when I say new, this is like as of 4 days ago new, so it's just really new. Council has not had a chance to talk about this yet. What would the expectations be? Is it worship and focus on worship, but really not more than that? What does that mean as we go forward, as we want to partner with other congregations? Those are all things yet to be determined. but I wanted to share this exciting news because this is something that will be changing for Mount Calvary as we go forward. Okay, I think for informational updates, there might be more as we get to after the end of the meeting, but I think we are probably ready to call the annual meeting to order, and I will so do that. And Lori Lynn has confirmed that we have a quorum present. Correct, Lori Lynn? Yes. Okay, thank you. Well, let's open in prayer. Gracious God, we are so blessed and so thankful for your presence here at Mount Calvary, for all of us, each of us in our hearts. There is so much to be thankful for. We were especially grateful for the worship service today, as we were reminded that we're in anticipation of waiting to celebrate your birth and your coming, kind of similar to how Mount Calvary is waiting for our next steps and as we step into your will as we go forward. We lift this meeting up to you and ask that our conversations and our decisions be guided by your will. And we lift this up in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, so first on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Does anybody need a copy? Does everyone have one?
I make a motion to approve.
I second.
So Shirley Astor made a motion to approve and Laura seconded the approval of the agenda. Is there any discussion? Otherwise, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right, just a reminder of our purpose, values, vision. So, our values, which are at the bottom of the page, as we live out God's love, we will be faithful to God's word, follow Jesus, and trust in the power of prayer. And our vision is to care for the community and each other, to know and follow Jesus' teaching, to gather in spirit-led worship, and to share the peace and joy of life in Jesus Christ. And you can follow the guiding principles along the side of the page. Okay, new business is to approve the minutes of the last congregation meeting of March 12th, which is on the next couple pages.
So moved.
Kara made a motion to approve.
Second.
Shirley Ostrom made a motion to second. So there's a motion and a second to approve the last congregation meeting minutes. Is there any discussion? Otherwise, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the recommended budget for 2024, and that begins on page immediately following the minutes. Okay, Steve, I know we talked about who's going to go first and say what, but I forgot already.
Yeah.
Right away it fails.
We want to do a motion first.
Yeah, before discussion.
Okay, so thank you. The protocol is to have a motion and a second
Then we discuss.
on the budget, and then we discuss, and then we vote.
I make a motion.
Shirley Astor makes a motion to approve the budget, and Sue Brown is seconded. So now we can discuss.
You're gonna go last.
I'm going last.
Yes. We've got this organized. Can I go up there?
Okay, Terry and I are both going to discuss the budget, but I'm going to go first cover all the easy stuff and leave the real hard stuff for Terry. That's what we decided, or at least I decided that. The items that we're going to, as we go through the budget, the items that Terry will discuss, which probably there'll be more discussion, and that's why we decided that Terry would discuss the worship coordinator position, children's ministry coordinator, and then staff employees. So those are the items as we go through the budget that I'll be skipping, and Terry will be covering those. But as we look at the current budget and we look at our proposed budget for 2024, you're going to see the one big change relates to our pastor position. Now, in the current budget for 2023, we anticipated hiring a full-time pastor on April 1st. Now, that didn't take place, but at least that's what was in the budget, full-time pastor, April 1st. What's in the proposed budget for next year is a shared pastor, and that starts on July 1st. Now, a shared pastor, our definition of a shared pastor is we will share a pastor with another ELCA congregation in this area where we both pay 50%. So when we talk about a shared pastor, that's really what we mean. And again, the proposed budget for next year, it's in the budget to start on July 1st. So as we go through the budget for next year and we kind of look at the current budget, you're going to see some big differences, because the current budget again was a full-time pastor, so salary, housing allowance, benefits are going to be a lot higher than what we have in the proposed budget for 2024. Again, it's a shared pastor, 50% starting July 1st. So with that being said, I'm going to flip over to page 1, which is titled 2024 Proposed Budget. Just want to give you a little background. My definition would be this is a bottoms-up approach. So all the different committees within the church, whether it was worship committee, property committee, personnel, they all submitted what they thought was their logical budget for next year. They all had an opportunity to put together what they thought they needed. Angel then accumulated that budget, presented it, and gave it to council. Council reviewed it, made changes. Council then reviewed it again and made changes. We went account by account all the way through the budget, so it was a pretty thorough analysis. But really, it's a fluid budget, and what I mean by that is things change. You know, again, we thought we would have a pastor on board April 1st. That didn't take place. So to the best of our ability, we put together a budget that we think is a good budget, and it makes sense for us. But again, things do change, and a budget is just a guideline for what we see happening next year. Obviously, as I said, things change. So looking at the budget again on page 1, the first column, January through September, that is our actual through 9 months of this year for giving and all expenses, each category all the way down. That's actual. Second column, annual budget 2023. That's the budget that we're operating under this year that was approved at the congregational meeting last year. The next column would be, that is our proposed 2024 annual budget for next year. That's what council went through and, you know, scrubbed and came up with what we think is the best budget. The last column, difference, is simply the difference between the two budgets, 23 versus 24. I'm not going to talk about each item on here. That would take too long, and Dave wants to watch the Packers tonight, so we're going to have to make it quick.
And he's not the only.
The first item that I want to talk about really is the top part where it says total account 4,000. That's our income. That's our giving. And you see the current year budget, 215,727. That's the budget this year. If you look next door, we're at 205. And you say, well, why is that lower? Why is the budget for giving next year lower than it is this year? Simple answer is the current budget is a big stretch, and we don't feel as though we can achieve that. Our budget for next year, $205,000, is more of a realistic stretch, and it makes sense to us. It's something that's more achievable. The giving for last year, 2022, was almost $197,000. We're running about $6,000 higher this year compared to last year. So if everything were to stay the same and we would have 196 and if we were to add another 6,000 that were higher this year than last year, that comes to 203,000. So we've rounded it up. It's at 205. So that's more realistic than the 215. It's just a high stretch number that we don't think we can achieve. So we're being more realistic. Now, that 205, I don't want to talk all day, but that 205 does have some risk in it because the month of December is always a big month for giving. It's kind of a catch-up as we end the year. And in 2022, the month of December was almost $30,000. The average for the first 11 months was 15. So you see in December, it's almost a 2-month giving month, which, kind of catches up. Will we have that same amount this year? Will we have that same double amount in 2024? We don't know. So there is still some risk and still some stretch in the 205 number for our budget for next year, but I just wanted to throw that out just so that you're aware. It's still a stretch. It's not like we're coming down. It's more realistic, but there is some risk and still some stretch to achieve that number. The next item I'm going to talk about really is on the bottom, benevolences. And you can see the different categories. And I would like to have you flip over to page 2. That's a continuation of benevolences. You can see that what we have in next year's budget is a little over $20,000. And what we did was we targeted 10% of giving. Our giving next year is $205,000. If you take 10% of that, it's $20,000. So that's how we came up with what our benevolences are targeted at for next year. You also see that benevolences for 24 are higher than the budget this year, which is at $17,680. So we're not trying to reduce our benevolences. Actually, we've increased it both in a dollar amount and as a percentage of giving. So we're still being generous with the benevolences. If you follow all the way down almost to the end, next area would be under property. And you'll see 2 items that I have highlighted. One is winter groundskeeper, the other is summer groundskeeper. And you see there's kind of a zero budget for the current. That's not entirely true. What we're doing is we're showing those 2 positions, winter groundskeeper, summer groundskeeper, in the current budget. They're being shown as employees. So you'll see them a little bit later. What we see here under property, those would really be contractors. So we're not having our employees be the summer groundskeeper. We have, I think, a younger guy by the name of Gabe who cuts the lawn, etc. So we're just showing that in different places in the budget, just so that you see budget for next year is $1,625 and $1,000 for summer groundskeeper. So the numbers are the same pretty much year to year. It's just that they're shown in different parts of the budget. Next item was really right below that. It's called insurance. And if you look under our current column, $5,316, we still have another payment for insurance that'll be made in the month of December. We pay our insurance January, May, and December. So we still have another payment to Church Mutual for workers' comp. That's why that number looks a little bit low compared to the budget, the current year budget. We're expecting insurance to increase next year in 2024. So that's why we've, you could say, upticked it from $7,000 to $10,500. We've left a little cushion in there just to make sure that everything is covered. We may be a little bit high, we don't know, but at least we have a cushion to cover what we adequately think the insurance will be for next year. That would be everything on that page. If we flip over to page 3, again, pretty much those numbers as we go down from technology and congregational ministries, it's a little bit higher, but nothing really out of the ordinary. Kind of in the middle of the page, I wanted to mention under supply pastor, that's again, if you see the first column 5,000 and you see the budget 2,000 and you see the next column 3,250, we anticipated having a full-time pastor on board. That didn't take place, so we had to use a supply pastor. So that's why that cost is higher than what the budget is. And what we're anticipating in next year's budget for a supply pastor would be 6 months. Again, we hope to have a shared pastor on board July 1st, so the supply pastor would be 6 months for the beginning of the year. Yeah, the next one would be transitional facilitator. That's Pastor Andrea, who's provided a lot of help to both Terry and the church council during this transition from a pastor to no pastor and hoping to have a pastor on board. She's been very influential and helpful to us. So that, we set up a new category, new account called transitional facilitator. And in the 2024 annual budget, we pay Pastor Andrea $850 a month times 6 months. That's $5,100. That's what's sitting in there. Now, with Pastor Andrea being here, hopefully if we get, the logic behind that is if we have a shared pastor on board by July 1st, then we as a congregation think that would be kind of the end of a transitional facilitator. If that doesn't take place, then that would go longer in the absence of a pastor. So our thinking is pastor comes on board, we certainly would want to continue your help,
That's how it's supposed to go.
but okay, I just want to make sure you don't feel uncomfortable with us.
That's how it should be.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that kind of makes sense to us. Now, the one thing I'll mention, we have had the contract with Pastor Andrea for the entire year of 2023. Where that cost is showing is a little bit further down. It's under senior pastor salary, under housing allowance. That $6,800 was for Pastor Andrea. We had agreed this year to show that as housing allowance, and next year we want to change how we do that. We don't really want to continue to show it under housing allowance. We want a separate category. We set up transitional facilitator under worship ministry teams. To us, that made more sense. So that's why we used her this year. We plan on using Pastor Andrea next year, but where we're showing that cost is under 2 different accounts. Pretty much the same cost, same idea. Again, as you look at that annual budget for 2023, you're going to see senior pastor salary, $59,000, and then you look at the next column, annual budget for next year, $16,915. Okay, again, when I preface my comments by saying full-time pastor anticipated this year, April 1st, didn't take place, but it was in the budget. Next year, shared pastor, effective July 1st. That's why those costs are a lot lower. And that would be true as we get into the second page and we look, or the next page, we'll look at fringe benefits. As you continue down, there's another category called worship coordinator. Terry's going to talk about that. Further down is summer groundskeeper, winter groundskeeper. Again, I said before, just a little difference in the budget where we're showing those costs. The budget this year had them included under as employees, and that's what the dollar amounts, $2,210 and $1,624. Next year, they're shown as contractors under a different category. Children's ministry coordinators on the bottom of the page. Terry's going to talk us through that. On the final page then, the only thing I was going to mention, it's pretty much consistent from the top down. You look at through, with some increases, financial administrator, music directors, office admin, a little bit higher in 2024 than what it was in the current year. Benefits, again, you're going to see that the current budget has much higher numbers, and that reflects the full-time pastor. Budget for next year reflects a shared pass-through with a different starting date. Mileage would be the only other thing that I'd really comment on. Mileage increased in the next year's budget, 2024, $3,500. And that really would be for our supply pastors and Pastor Andrea. We pay mileage for those people. And the budget wasn't enough this year, $800. Looking over at the actual 2004-23, so the actual is much higher, so we had to bump up the budget to make sure we covered everything. When you look at the final row where it says net income, that is the difference between our giving and our expenses. And the budget for next year, our proposed budget, it's pretty much a break even, but we have a slightly favorable budget of $2,210. That compares to the current year budget, which was a deficit of $42,580. So we thought our main purpose was trying to put a budget together that would allow us to bring a pastor on board. And you can see as we go through that, not only with my discussion, but what Terry's going to add, I think we achieved that. That's our primary purpose, is to bring a pastor on board. And again, our intent would be on July 1st. So we can't have a big deficit. We feel as though if we're break even, that kind of makes sense to us. Now, the final comment that I wanted to mention, just to keep in the back of our minds relating to our budget, was my thinking a full-time pastor may not be right away, but the cost of a full-time pastor would be about $100,000. That would be salary, housing, all the benefits. Again, depending upon the experience of that pastor, it may be lower to start with, but it won't be too many years before you start looking at $100,000. So with $100,000 as the annual total package for a pastor, what we're doing in our proposed budget is on July 1st, we've got a shared pastor. So that $100,000 goes to $50,000, and since it's only for half of that period of time, in our budget, it's about $25,000. So $25,000 is our cost for next year, give or take, for a shared pastor beginning on July 1st. Now, our budget allows us to do that. My question would be, and to everyone just to think about it, would be in 2025, because 2025 is a full year. So that $25,000 for the last 6 months becomes $50,000 for the whole year. So $50,000 would be our shared cost, our 50%. Another congregation would have their share at 50% or $50,000. So when we look at 2025, to get $50,000, and right now we're at 25, we would have a shortfall in our budget if everything were done just the same way. So to accommodate that in 2025, we're either going to have an increase in giving, or we're going to have to kind of look at our expenses and cut back here or there or whatever, or a combination of the two. So that would be just something to think about. Right now the budget allows us to have a pastor, shared pastor, July 1st next year, and we're pretty much at a break even, so that we feel comfortable with that. So that is my part, and I'm going to turn it over to Terry for the tough part.
Thank you, Steve. Council really wrestled with this budget. I got to tell you, we wrestled in a big way. There's what we want to do, and then there's what we feel we are able to do with the resources that we currently have. I'm going to start at on the last page here. For current staff, and current staff right now is the office admin, Lori Lynn, and the finance admin, which is Angel Baker. For the current staff, we have in here a pay increase of $1 an hour. So it goes from $15.75 to $16.75 an hour. It's a generous increase, if you will, but the thought is where over the last few years we've been trying to get these wage increases up to a more market level with what the rest of the world is doing. So that was the reason for that. We have the children's ministry coordinator position. We originally had put that in the budget, and then Angela Frost left, right? So she resigned her position as her and her family moved to Iowa. And we said, well, okay, now what? Now what do we do with that position and with that salary? And at the same time, we had intended to look at compensating the position of worship coordinator, because that is a lot of work. You know, it's 15, 20 hours a week worth of work is what it has been. And it's been very critical to Mount Calvary and our future. And we looked at that, and then we looked at the numbers, and we looked at it again, and looked at the numbers. And then we came back to looking at what other churches are doing. And for example, Good Shepherd in Wausau. Good Shepherd in Wausau does not have a pastor. They have two very, very good staff people. And that congregation has said, we want to keep the staff people we have and not have a pastor. That was an affirmative decision that congregation made. And we looked at Mount Calvary and said, is that the direction we want to go to Mount Calvary? Do we look at adding and increasing staff such that we might not be able to afford a pastor even on a part-time basis? And as we wrestled with that, we said no. It was a difficult decision to come to. We are also, of course, looking and walking down the path of, partnering with another congregation or two. We're not there yet. There's conversations going on, but we're not there yet. So there's just more unknowns in that area. Are there opportunities to share in these ministries with other congregations, and what does that mean? We have a little bit of an unknown now with if Roxy moves forward with the SAM position, what does or doesn't that mean with the work she's doing in the worship coordinator? That's also an unknown right now. It's so brand new. We need some time to take a breath and think about that. So that's the reason behind it. And I say it's a tough decision. So the children's ministry coordinator, I especially wrestle with that because I think that's our future, right? I think building our children's ministry and attracting families is that's our future. So to not have that as a paid position is a tough one. Honestly, it's a tough one. Right now, we have volunteers who have stepped up and said, we will run Sunday school for the rest of the school year. And that's incredible. Thank you to everyone who has stepped up and helped in that way. We're using the curriculum that Angela had laid out for us for the rest of the year. So, a lot of that planning and preparation work has been laid out for us. When the school year is done, well, then what? Then there's more of that background work that needs to be done by somebody. So it's either volunteers or, again, a paid position. So in the end, as Steve pointed out, the other thing we wrestled a little bit was, well, okay, this is a pretty neutral budget relative to anticipated giving, assuming we can get a pastor, and that's an assumption, right? That's not saying we're really confident we're going to have a pastor by July 1. You know, that's an assumption. We're going to put something in the budget and work in that towards that direction. As Steve has pointed out, if that were 12 months instead of 6 months, well, again, we'll be looking at a little bit of a budget deficit at our current giving levels. And our current giving levels, as Steve has pointed out, this year's giving is a little higher than last year's. So our giving has not dropped in the last year or so. But it's not growing by leaps and bounds either, right? So we would hope that as we move forward, we, reach out to more people, people that would attend Mount Calvary, that were sharing the word of and love of God with others, that they would join us in worship. That's our ultimate goal. But so, so here we are. At this point, I'll open it up to comments and your feedback.
I must say I was a little disappointed that there wasn't anything in there for a children's ministry coordinator coming forward. I know we had people stepping up, and I was one of them. So what's going to happen? Are you saying that maybe if we don't get a pastor, we'll look in the summer to maybe hire someone again? Or because I guess that's a big concern. I thought we were finally moving on the right track. We had Sue's guidance, and then we hired Angela, and she was so enthusiastic and got so much stuff going. And now we're right back to not even what we had with Sue. So I guess that's my big concern.
Okay, Terry knows this is coming because I emailed her as soon as I found out about the children's ministry coordinator position being cut. Barb very nicely said she was disappointed. The word that I probably would describe how I felt when I first found out was livid. It makes me so angry that we would just cut the position. And that's looking at it from a couple of perspectives. In my career over the years, one of the things that kind of got me in trouble sometimes is because I so often was fighting for advocating for the children rather than, what is the cheapest thing that we can do? What is best for the children? When we look at how this new plan is being described, this is out of the messenger that we just got. 6 adults have agreed to be Sunday school teachers. Wonderful, wonderful. I think that is great. 2 adults will pair up to teach 1 week. The following week, 2 different adults will teach. The week after that, the last 2 adults will teach. And the rotation starts all over. Now, for our children, which we know, we have kids that have had some trauma, some chaos in their life, maybe not a lot of stability for some of the kids. We have some kids that have some behavior issues, kind of things. We have some kids that are incredibly shy. You can't barely get a word out of them. But now, yes, we're keeping the same curriculum, but there is no way that we are going to have the exact same, systems in place from week to week, or something like that. Just the classroom management kind of things is going to be so different for these kids. And I just think it is not in the best interest of the children. It is not developmentally appropriate, I don't think, for us to be having this turnover week after week after week. If this was something that was being looked at as very short term, until personnel could, hire someone new, great, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful that we have people that are helping cover for this. But the way this is being presented is more that, this is just what we're going to do from now on. When you were talking about other churches, we looked at what other churches are doing. There are a lot of churches that don't have someone running a children's program. You know what those churches also say? Well, we don't have any kids. Well, of course not. If you don't have a children's program, you're not going to have kids. And we all know we need to have younger families for this church to survive in the long term, kind of thing. Because when I'm one of the youngest people at things, that's a problem. You know, so, I think also, you know, we look at the ministry site profile that we filled out, which hasn't really been addressed lately because we're not at that stage. But we utilized faithful metrics and have 3 main goals. 1, increase connections between congregation members and the community to share compassion and hope. 2, have a vibrant children's ministry. 3, have a sustainable ministry. Now, we just cut number 2. We aren't going to have a sustainable ministry if we don't have children's programming going on. And really, if you look at all the things that Angela did that weren't just down in the Sunday school rooms on the Sunday morning, all of the things in the community, at the Chalk Fest and at the balloon rallies and things that were in the community, she was also one of the big people doing number 1. And so I think, you know, that if we cut the position completely, it's saying we really don't think that it's important. And I think that it's going to be really hard to get it back in the budget once we cut the position. So I know when I had brought this up, I had been asked, you know, well, what do you think are the number of hours that we need and stuff. I crunched a bunch of other numbers that if it was a matter of us cutting back hours per week, if it was a matter of not having it be a year-round position necessarily and more a school year, I know, you know, this would be a great opportunity for us to be working with other churches. There again, the problem is, where do we decide where to have the Sunday school? Are our families, you know, going to just go to a different church then with whoever we're teaming with? Vacation Bible School would definitely be something that would be easier to work with other churches with. But there again, we still need people that are involved with all of those meetings ahead of time to plan things, to actually run it. It's ordering all the materials, you know, and things, all of the setup, all the cleanup and stuff. I really think that if we're looking long-term for this church, not just, oh, this year's budget, next year's budget, long-term, we have to keep that commitment to the children.
I like to propose an amendment to add in $10,000 for Children's Ministry Coordinator, which will be roughly 3/4 for the year for what Angela was proposed originally for 2024 budget.
Yes, it does.
I second that.
So help me with the protocol, Kara. So now that there's an amendment,
We have to vote on the amendment.
we have to vote on the amendment. Okay.
Any discussion?
And if we vote on the amendment, to accept the amendment, which is not the same, and then we come back and vote on the budget?
Correct.
Just to make sure we know the steps, okay.
So we'd have discussion though on this.
Okay. Any further discussion on the proposed amendment to add $10,000 for Children's Ministry Coordinator?
So once we're talking about this now, and if we have 6 people that have stepped forward and said, we'll do this, if this amendment then passes, then those 6 people are getting paid?
No.
Because it's already been put together for this next 6 months? And how do we handle that once school starts again next year? So we have 6 people, but these 6 people cannot do it every month. Like you might put 2 people together for 1 month, 2 people together for 1 month. People don't have that kind of, their schedules just don't work that way at this point, that we have to do it differently every Sunday. Because some people are out of town. Some people go on vacation. We've got some people that are here in town, but have other commitments here at church. I might be singing in the choir for the day, and my other commitment would be to be doing the kids down in the basement. I would love to be able to do it every Sunday, but my schedule does not allow that, and neither do the other people in our church. I think we have to give the liberty to the people that have volunteered and say it's okay that we have those 6 people be different for the month. We don't have that many people that are going to step up and say, I'll do it every Sunday. We don't have that luxury at this point. I wish we did, but we don't.
I think we have to be grateful for our volunteers and do the best we can to keep the kids here that we have here. And I think we all understand that some of them have issues, whether it be behavioral or just want the consistency but we're going to do the best we can with the volunteers we have, because even if we put this back into the budget, which I think would probably be a good idea to look for somebody, but it's going to take a while. You can't just find somebody nowadays. It's very hard to find somebody that only wants to work that 10 or 15 hours a week. So you have to find somebody that is called to do that job. So I want to be thankful for the volunteers we have. Let them do the work they have. Maybe put some money in the budget so that if the opportunity comes and we find somebody that's right for that position, we'd have it in the budget to hire them. But I'm sure it was going to take a while.
It took, to hire Angela, I'm trying to remember, but 4 months, 6 months, it was a very long time from the time we started looking. Any other comments?
I'm just going to comment that I think it reflects more of our attitude that if we have it in the budget, we can now say to personnel, okay, go out and let's start looking, rather than, okay, we develop this plan and see what happens from there. I think having it there gives us, shows that that's why we're doing it and what we're doing, and that we are committed to it. It might take a while, but at least we're there.
Thank you. So with an amendment, that would put us into a deficit for the year for our budget. So a budget is a plan for income and expenses with a bottom line. It doesn't speak about the financial position of the church. Within this document, there's nothing that talks about what kind of shape we're really in. Do we have a surplus? Do we have money in the bank? What does that look like? So if someone could speak to our current financial position and where we are with reserves.
The purpose of the budget really is not to address what your question.
Absolutely.
Because the purpose of the budget is looking at our giving and our expenses and trying to give us a roadmap for the next year. But to answer your question, how is the church financially? My opinion would be the church is in good financial condition. We have just to give you an idea, our checking account balance is $145,000 at the end of October. Now that's comprised really of where people have donated for specific, what we call designated funds, where they may have given money for kitchen improvement, building improvement, landscaping, VBS, et cetera, all the way down the line. Those designated funds are over $59,000 that we have. The other piece, which would be our general fund, we have $86,000. So the combination of our general fund and designated funds would be $145,000. That's our checking account balance is $145,000. Then in addition, we have an endowment fund. Again, that's not to be used for general operating expenses. It's to be used for additional ministry, something outside of the normal operation of the church. That balance is over $49,000. Then about 3 to 5 years ago, there was a special fund investment where we took money out of the designated funds and put them at Thrivent as a separate investment. That dollar amount is over $55,000. So when you look at the combination of all of these different pieces, our total current assets are $250,000, which is, decent. We do have a surplus also. When you look at our equity, we do have a surplus in there. I'd have to look back at some other information that I have there, but I think that's about $18,000 is our equity. In other words, from when we started as a church until the current year, you take all of your annual deficits, surplus, add them all the way up from the beginning time until right now, and it's about a positive $18,000. So if you want to know what I would consider, my opinion would be the church is still in good financial condition. We don't have any other debt. We don't have a debt on the building. We don't have any other loans. We don't have anything like that. So there's no loans. I've mentioned to you what we have as far as current assets, checking account, and equity. I think we're okay. We're doing well from that perspective.
So thank you for the explanation. So then it's safe to say that if we adopt a budget with a deficit for the year, we're in adequate financial position to cover it for the 2024 year, correct?
The answer to that is if you look at what the approved budget from last year for the current year, that was a deficit of $44,000. I didn't feel comfortable with that. I was one of the few people that voted no. And I shouldn't say that, but I didn't feel comfortable with that deficit in the budget of $44,000. So if we have a deficit of $8,000, all of this stuff is our best estimate right now. Giving is going to be a little bit higher, could be lower. We don't know, but we're trying to really forecast what we truly believe is a good number and all of the expenses. So we're going to save some money someplace, we're going to overspend in other places. So the $8,000, if that's what our adopted budget is for next year, that's still not real bad. I still like it a lot better than $44,000 as a deficit. We'd prefer something closer to break even, but the $8,000 as a deficit, I think we can be comfortable with that. And I think that the big thing too would be the children's ministry coordinator. By the time we hire that position, again, we're saying we're not going to hire that on January 1st. It's going to take us some time to get a candidate, to go over that with personnel, and to actually hire that person. Will that $10,000, even though it's in the budget, will we spend that? I'm not sure. It may be a little bit high, so we probably would save a little money on that. But overall, $8,000 deficit, my opinion would be it's okay.
Thank you for your commentary.
I agree with Sue. I think we need to be really grateful for those 6 people who have stepped up and volunteered, and I believe that they will do the best for our children. And I understood you said that was planned for the rest of the school year. So would it make sense in our budget? I do support a children's ministry position. Would it make sense to do similar to what we're doing with a pastor, to plan for half of the year? And maybe that person come on board in July 1 or September 1 for the school year, and that would help with the money in the budget.
So that 10,000 is for 3/4 of the year currently. So that gives us that nice little buffer to have 3 to 4 months. And if we don't use all 10,000, that's okay. It's there.
And honestly, I would not expect to be able to hire someone that quickly. And I guess I would be remiss, as I'm thinking about this, and we talked about the position of a SAM. That is a compensated position. We're paying for supply pastors now. Will there be an additional expense related to SAM if we have somebody presiding over communion 4 Sundays, every Sunday a month instead of just 2? So that, but again, we don't know what that is. That's an unknown. It's out there, but it's an unknown because we haven't had a chance to even take a breath and talk about what we would like that to mean for Mount Calvary. Any? Okay.
Just gonna refer this to Sam. So, we probably have this gut feeling that it will be Roxy, you know, and then we have to look at, yes, we want to pay her. I mean, I think we have to pay her. I would never expect anybody to do this amount of work and not get paid. You can't just be a volunteer. You've got to get paid for this position. So we have to make sure that she has some kind of compensation, not just, I mean, for the last year that she's been doing this. I think we need to, that's got to be more than what we have in the budget right now. I think it's totally worth more money than what we're giving her. She may say no, but I think, you know, underlying she's might be saying, you know, that's okay, I'll take that. But she worked so hard, she has kept our church together. And to just be a volunteer, we can't accept that anymore from her. So what does that look like as far as paying her on a monthly basis? Is that part of our budget for next year? Something we have to look at?
It currently is not part of the budget right now.
Just love these things. One of the things that I just wanted to clarify with Andrea, the SAM program, the salary will come from the recommendation from the Synod, just like they do for pastors. So, and that would include all the benefits, am I correct on that? I mean, there's a guideline that is being set up, that has been set up. And that will come from the Synod, and that's what we will pay. So that's clear.
Well, if you have her, well, you won't be having supply pastors coming in, so that money wouldn't be used, you'd be using her. So wouldn't there be a difference there?
That is a good question. So right now, we have a supply pastor come in the first Sunday of the month to preach and preside, right? Does the whole service. And the third Sunday of the month to preside over communion, but not preach. And if there's a fifth Sunday, a supply pastor. So what we have not had an opportunity to discuss at all is with the SAM, so Roxy can preach and preside, right? Is that instead of the supply pastors, the first and third Sunday? Or is it in addition to, so that the congregation will want to have communion every Sunday of the month? And I can't answer that right now. We haven't had any time to even give that some thought. But so it depends.
I think we need to remember that we just found out that there's a possibility of Roxy becoming Sam earlier. So we didn't know that when we were making the budget. And I don't think we would ever have any intention of having Roxy work without getting paid. But we have to remember the budget is an estimate, and it is subject to change. Things change, because we do face a lot of unknowns in this day and age. So I think, things could change when we know more.
So it was just, it was mentioned that there's guidelines from the Synod for what a SAM is supposed to be compensated. Do we have any idea what those guidelines look like? I mean, is it $1,000 a year? Is it $50,000 a year? Is there kind of an idea?
My understanding is it depends on what we have that individual do. So if they are doing worship, we want them to preach and preside over a worship service. The compensation is the same as we would pay a supply pastor. Pastor Andrews is saying yes. So if that's all we ask that position to do, that's what it would be. There are other options, right? Do we want her to teach Sunday school? Do we want her to teach confirmation? Do we want her to go visit everybody at home? That's a very big ask, and I'm not saying we do. But if those responsibilities expand beyond worship, and my understanding is it's not a salaried position per se, as much as it is you get paid for, if you're doing education, so much an hour for the amount of time you do a Bible study, for
It's kind of per diem.
Yeah, per diem, if you will. Daryl?
Can I just help us get back on track, because we have a motion on the floor, an amendment for the amendment, and that's all we're supposed to be discussing right now. The SAM is a separate issue. We can jump into that later. Let's just get the children's position taken care of, and then you can move on to whatever else you want to talk about.
Okay, any other discussion on the children's ministry coordinator? So we have a motion and a second to add $10,000 into the proposed budget to cover the expense for a children's ministry coordinator. There are paper ballots on your table. If you are in favor of that amendment, and if it's the amendment we're voting on, we're not voting on the whole budget now, we're just voting on whether or not to add the $10,000 into the proposed budget. If you are in favor, write yes. If you are opposed, write no.
That's true.
So while we're waiting for the ballots to be counted, I think I'll just take this pause and maybe talk a little bit about the little bit we do know about shared ministry going forward and what has been happening. So first of all, I want to thank Pastor Andrea, who's here sitting up front, for all her help in helping keep things moving forward. So Bethlehem in Kronawetter is now without a pastor. We have reached out to Bethlehem and said, are you interested in working with Mount Calvary for a shared pastor? At the same time, Bethlehem and St. John and Mosinee are having similar conversations, and at the same time, St. John and Mount Calvary are talking about ways, possibilities of working together, doing more collaboration, both in, I hope, both in music and in worship. So those conversations are happening, but again, so brand new. So Bethlehem's council met last Thursday. I don't know what they've said or what direction they feel they might want to go. So just wanted to let you know that that's out there. The Synod has raised the possibility of maybe there's something we could do with St. Andrew. Maybe, again, so new, we haven't really had any conversations with them. So, but that's potentially out there in some form or fashion. So things are very dynamic yet, and things keep changing, and we'll keep sharing what we know with you when we know it. So the motion to add $10,000 to the budget for Children's Ministry Coordinator passed, 31 yes, 5 no. Motion carried. Okay, that brings us back to the rest of the budget. Right, now we vote on the, could you pass those ballots again, please, Angel? Because now we... Oh, there's more there? There's more at the table? Okay, thank you. All right. Is there any further discussion on the budget with the, knowing that there's an additional $10,000 in there for Children's Ministry Coordinator? Is there any further discussion on the rest of the budget as a whole? Kathy has a...
Is this my amendment? That we make an amendment to continue to pay Roxy throughout the year? Even though we kind of don't know what that will be and what that will look like, but I don't agree with just handing her money for a year and thinking that was enough. My proposal would be to figure out what that would be and give it to her on a monthly basis or a bi-weekly basis, because what goes on here in this church has to be a paid position. It almost looks like a pastoral position. And if we had a pastor, would they be paid bi-weekly? We just can't let her continue to do the work that she does and go, oh, here's some money here, let's just give her a check for that. I think it needs to be a bi-weekly payment. Is that enough for an amendment, Daryl? I amend, okay.
So you're...
Oh, I put $1 with it, okay. Come on, Kira.
So what you're proposing is to put a paid position, however, doesn't matter how it gets paid, whether it's bi-weekly, set monthly, right? But a paid worship coordinator position into the budget. Go ahead, Kira.
So 2 points. For a SAM, that is a contracted employee. No, it's not a direct employee, but once it is approved and she goes through the certification from the Synod, then we set up a contract on agreed terms and payments and what she's going to do. We have no timeline on that. We have no dollar amount on that. That is a big unknown. As for a worship coordinator, There's no job role currently with roles and responsibilities defined. So we can't hire somebody directly if we don't have that defined, and it would have to go through the personnel team to go through that. Now, as a caveat, if we do at some point in 2024 decide to hire somebody via SAM or a worship coordinator, we can have a special congregational meeting, like we've done in the past, to propose that role and to hire for that role. But at this time, there are too many unknowns that we can't define that role.
Just to note though, I mean, you'll see in the budget that, you know, there's a budget number there, 66318 for worship coordinator. It's a position that we did have before. So, you know, like that was one kind of thing that with personnel, when we talked about this and we had initially discussed, you know, having, it was $500 a month that we were suggesting to go to Roxy. Yep, it's kind of toward the bottom of page 3. But yeah, what personnel had originally suggested had been taken out. So again, there, yeah, like Kira said, we didn't have a job description officially, but at one point in life, Mount Calvary did have a job description for it. You know, and if it's a matter of pulling that out and making adaptations to what we currently would need, you know, it's a possibility.
I'd like to segue on that just a little bit. There is no formal written job description in the vein that Kira is talking about. That there is not. There was a document that was written with the worship oversight team and Pastor Rich before he retired, many months before he retired, and we labored over that document as we described what my role was, Lori's role, the team leader's role. Now that document has never risen to the surface this past year simply because of time to be revised and edited. It does need to be edited. So yes, there's a document out there. Could that be a starting point to move to what Kira's talking about? I just wanted to clarify that.
I think we have a lot of discussion on this. I think for the purpose of this meeting, we need to call a special one when we have more information on job description, know more what the Senate is, and the council has even had a chance to look at what a SAM might be doing for them, since this has come up so recently. So I think we should vote on this budget now and then call a special session at another time to pay for that position as it comes up and what we feel is appropriate.
So when we do have that special meeting, though, when we know it's coming, what do we do in the meantime? So if we don't address this for 4, 5, 6 months, does she just work for free? I don't agree with that.
At a special meeting, you can always vote to increase the budget based on the recommendation of the Personnel Committee and the Council, and you can also make those funds retroactive, so you could bring back and pay for work already done. So not knowing all the facts, I think that we're right in moving forward with the budget as is, making it right at the budget as it is. Let's vote on the budget that we have, giving them a direction to go ahead and start looking at and investigating and getting something to bring back to us at a future date when they have their ducks in a row. And at that time, you can vote to make it retroactive.
Is that okay, Kathy?
I agree.
Well, we had a motion made by Kathy, but I did not hear a second. So procedurally, what's our second? No, wait. Well, I'm just saying, wasn't a motion. No, I'm asking, so did Kathy make an motion originally?
There was not an official.
There was not an official motion, so we don't need to take an action on it.
Okay, so now you want an official motion. Daryl, say the words and I'll repeat it. No.
I'll make a motion to vote on the budget as it current stands. That's a motion.
That motion's already.
That motion's in effect right now.
So let's vote on it.
Call to action. Did
call
I
the
hear a
question.
call to action? All right. There's a call to action to vote on the budget as is, keeping in mind we have the $10,000 addition for the Children's Ministry Coordinator. So there are ballots. Does anyone need a ballot? Otherwise, if you're in favor, write yes on the ballot and no if you're opposed.
Thank you, sir. Shortly, I'm assuming. I just wanted, before I forget, thank you. Before I get doing something else.
Yes.
I did.
You can do like a.
Telling me as the second half started, they kind of gave up.
And you can vote as a block.
But hey, their credit, they stepped it up. You know, I always wonder.
Okay, so to keep things moving forward while they're counting the ballots, we're going to talk about the election of council and council officers. Now, first of all, I just want to say that when we did our survey, our congregation survey, one of the questions on that survey was, are you willing to serve on council? And there were a number actually who said they were. Whether that was intended to be this term going forward or some point in the future, I don't know. We did not reach out to individuals to explore that any further, but so the way the process will work here is we will first vote on the officers and then we'll take nominations for council members. Per the Constitution, there are 4 officers and we can have up to 9 members. And we currently have 5 who are in their terms and are continuing their terms. So that means we can have 0 to 4 additional members going for our council for this term going forward. Okay, so we have on the, hold on. Thank you, Angel and Autumn, for counting. So the motion to pass the budget passed. Yes, 34, no, 3. Thank you. Okay, so for officers on the council, well, we have Chris Marquardt serving as secretary and his term continues. The open spots are president, because my term of 2 years ends at the end of this year. Although for whatever reason I said yes, I would go again. But others are willing and welcome to run. Dick Kennitzer has volunteered to be nominated for vice president. And Steve Rather, who has filled in this past few months as treasurer, has agreed to run for a term of treasurer. So I'm going to raise those as nominations for that slate of officers for council, but also open the floor for other nominations for any of the positions. So I'm going to do a call for nominations for president, vice president, and treasurer. And I will do a call again for any other nominations for president, vice president, and treasurer. And for a third time, because we're required to call 3 times, I will open the floor for nominations for president, vice president, and treasurer. Okay. Okay, I go to Kira for my procedural correctness here.
It is written ballot
It is written ballot.
for executive and council. So
Combined.
you can block them, so if we have nominations for regular council, we can include
We could do the whole, all right, that's the music to my ears, okay. So current council members continuing,
Terry, sorry, I got a question.
nope,
Is it an issue that technically on our agenda, it's for Dick Kentizer?
Should blame the secretary on it.
no, you can blame that on me. That was me.
Secretary will fix it.
So currently serving at, well, let me clarify. The positions for officers are 2-year terms. The positions for council members are 3-year terms. And currently serving in their terms of council are Sue Brown, Diane, Autumn, Kira, Shirley Ostrom, Marty. Are there any other nominations for council members? Again, 0 to 4 members is what we are per constitution allowed to have.
Can we nominate somebody if they're not here?
Are they willing to serve?
Yeah, my mom won. No. Sandra Stefani. Oh, okay.
Did she accept that nomination?
I believe she.
Sandra's
She's oh, I'm sorry. I nominate. Dick. It is on. Dick. I nominate Sandra Stefanigan for council.
Are you accepting that nomination, Sandra?
I think I would.
All right.
I seconded.
Okay. Jane seconded it. All right. Are there, Steve? Yeah.
I just want to say one thing. My hope and intent is to serve 1 year as the treasurer, only because I made a commitment to Angel that I don't think is completed yet on my part. I promised her that I would help her and do everything I can to make sure she's successful in her job. And I'm 73 and a half. I don't want to be treasurer at 75. So even though it's a 3-year term, oh, it's a 2-year term? Yeah, okay. Well, I will make a definite commitment for 1 year, because I think at that time, Angel's gonna be comfortable, confident, knowledgeable, and she ain't gonna need anybody. And then also, I'll set the table for the next treasurer so that there won't be any problems, issues, whatever. It'll be easier for my successor. So make a commitment for 1 year, 2 years, I gotta think about that. But I just want it to be full disclosure, honesty up front, just to tell you what my thoughts are, because I'd like to, take a month off and go down south when it's warm and not be in the cold all the time. But my commitment to you I want to make sure I complete it. And I just want to also mention, Angel's doing a very nice job. She's doing an excellent job with good attitude, working hard, doing everything she can. And I just want you to be recognized for that.
Thank you, Steve. Kira?
So, point of clarification with Steve's notice, he's he's simply completing his second year for next year for his original term, because he filled in for part of this year and into the second year's next year.
Okay.
So we're simply just voting on his treasurer term to finish his second year for his first term.
Okay. Okay. All right. Are there any other nominations for council members? Are there any other nominations for council members? Okay, you have paper ballots. This is a paper vote. So you have your ballots. Yes to accept the ballot. Write in changes as you see appropriate.
Do we do yes or no, or do we have to name each person? We're voting as block.
Voting as a block, so yes or no.
Take it back.
He had a great game.
Your turn?
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, we'll keep moving forward. The next item on the agenda is the nomination elections for Mission Endowment. So, okay, sorry. So the term, okay, so first, we have one opening. So currently serving is Jane, Yvonne Clemens, Sue, and Kathy Kraus.
And me.
And Barb, but Barb's term is expiring.
Yes. Oh, it is.
But she can go on for a second.
If she is willing, she can be reelected for a second term.
Sure. I didn't think I was up for election anyway, so.
I nominate her for reelection.
All right, Laura's nominating Barb for reelection. Are there any other nominations for serving on Mission Endowment Committee? Jane Bratz. Jane Bratz is coordinator, leading president, whatever.
Can I make a comment about what it involves? Okay, endowment involves 4 meetings a year, which usually are 15 to 20 minutes at best, because we don't have enough in the funds to appropriate or disperse what we have. So we meet, we find out what it is, we decide if there's any other issues. We're done in 15 to 20 minutes, and that involves the endowment commitment for you 4 times a year.
So it's Jane, Yvonne Clemens, Sue Brown, Kathy Kraus, and then Barb.
Shouldn't Angel be on that as well? I think that's what,
Not official.
but that she attends as part of it. Okay, I just want to make sure she was included in that.
Was there a second on Barb's nomination?
No, there was not. Shirley? Okay.
Are there any other nominations for Mission Endowment Committee member? Again, it's an election, so this is a paper ballot. No, it's not. This one's not. Oh, voice vote. Okay. I'm sorry, what? Verbal, we can say. So all in favor of re-electing Barb to serve on the Mission Endowment Committee? Aye? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. And the votes are in for the council slate, and it's 35 yes, unanimous. Thank you, Angel and Autumn, for counting those ballots for us. Okay, next on the agenda, nomination and election of 2 Crossway Ministries annual meeting delegates, usually in February. And I don't remember who it was last year, but you, Kira? Okay.
I don't remember who the other one was.
So we need nominations for 2 Crossways Ministries annual meeting delegates. Who wants to go to the annual meeting for Crossways?
It's either in person or via Zoom.
In person or via Zoom. So Kathy is one. Thank you.
Saturday morning.
Saturday morning. And Sue. Are there any others? Any other nominations? Sue Brown and Kathy. Are there any other nominations? All right. I believe this can be a voice vote also, right? Okay. So all in favor of Sue Brown and Kathy Kowalski for Crossways Ministries annual meeting delegates. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Other business. Well, I was going to talk about pastor transition, but I think I told you everything I know so far. So other than, unless Pastor Andrea, you have anything further. And I just want to say Pastor Andrea has also been very instrumental. She's part of the reaching out and talking, working with the Synod, talking to the Synod, talking to these other churches as we're moving forward. So she's been very, very helpful in that way. She's a great sounding board. I know Roxy talks to her a lot. I think I figured out, I was on the phone with Pastor Andrea 5 hours last week, so if that gives you any indication. So we certainly appreciate all your help. Anybody else have anything to say? Kira?
So as a heads up, our annual meeting is set for February 25th.
What annual meeting?
Our congregational annual meeting.
Oh, okay.
And
We just decided that last month.
Remember that? Was that in the minutes?
Yes. And as being part of the Synod Council, did want to let everyone know that the Wisconsin Valley Conference will be January 21st at Our Saviors in Merrill. If you want to go, let me know. It's either in person or via Zoom. The Synod Youth event, there will be one on the 27th of January, the Crossways Winter Camp for grades 3 through 8th in February 2nd through the 4th, and the Synod Youth Gathering is February 16th through the 18th. If you have any questions, let me know. There's tons of more involvement that the Synod wants to outreach to, especially with youth and children. So again, any questions about the Synod, feel free to let me know. And I'm hoping to touch base with each of the churches within our conference at least once throughout my term.
And your term is what, Kira?
It is.
But in what capacity?
So in
what capacity? You are serving in the Synod.
I'm serving in the Synod. I am filling out a remaining of a term, and theoretically I can do 2 more 3-year terms.
In what position?
Just regular council member.
Council member
for the
Synod.
For the
Central?
conference.
For the conference.
For the Synod, yeah. I'm the layperson of the Wisconsin Valley River Conference that serves on the synod.
Very nice.
Everybody notice her snazzy name tag she gets.
I know we all want to get going, but could we realistically expect at least some work done on the discussion for Roxy position by the congregational meeting in February? Could we have some resolution maybe by that time? I mean, at least could we vote, hear progress on what that's going to be, so that it's not just hanging out there for another year. Well, not just for Sam, for all of it. I mean, we've been talking about compensating her for helping to coordinate the worship, whether it's us as a Sam or as what she's serving right now. There is a little bit of a description for that in the thing, so I just want to have you guys discuss that and see what we can come up with.
You want that on the agenda then for next year, or for the annual?
For the congregational meeting, if we could have some kind of an update on that.
I will quickly speak to what I know about the SAM process, which I'm learning. As Pastor Betty will tell you, a year ago, when I was in lay school, there was not the discussion of a SAM. I heard it last spring in one of my lay school classes at the end in May. And at that point, the document still wasn't ready to be published yet. This has come about very quickly in the last 6 months. I can tell you that after you submit all of your candidacy application paperwork and essays, then you have to go through a psych eval, so we'll find out if I'm sane or crazy, one of the two.
Good luck. Depends on the day.
Yeah, I have been living with Dick all these years. Then I have to go to a one-on-one meeting with a member of the SAM committee, and then I have to go and meet with the candidacy committee. How long and fast that's gonna go, I have no clue. They did tell me that after you go through all that stuff, then you meet with your congregation and then you make some decisions. Did I speak that correctly, Pastor? So will it be ready by February? I don't know, because they have to have the psych eval back first to know if I'm sane or crazy.
No, unfortunately not.
Your vote doesn't count.
No, I guess.
I'll just say this. I think, Roxy, you're the first one to go through this process. I mean, they had SAMs way back when, but this is that kind of fell apart with some previous bishops, and they're redoing this process so it's healthier for congregations, healthier for the SAM, to make sure they're supported with continuing education. And she'll have to continue with things like boundary issues, ethics, racial bias. Like, she has a bunch of stuff still to do and ongoing work. But this is so new in our synod right now, and she's the first one, so be patient. Even though, like, maybe we can make that happen by February 25th and have concrete information, we may not, because she's like I said, I think she's the first one to go through this process. So please be patient. Just like the changing landscape of shared ministry, I'm glad to be with you for a year, but I was hoping you'd have a pastor. But it's just how the church, the body of Christ, is working right now. So please be patient. And I know transparency is a huge value here at Mount Calvary, and I think we're trying to do that, but please reach out to myself and to Terry or a council member if you have questions. So we're working on it. That's the best thing I can give at the moment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else from anyone before we wrap up? Chris?
Nope. This is my first time on church council, and it's been an adventure. I've been on other boards and things before, but I tell you what, when we are in a situation where we're sailing in a lot of new waters here and a lot of confusion, I have to thank Terry for being such a good guiding leader through this all. I can't imagine what I would have done if I were in her shoes. I probably would have gone crazy with Roxy. But no, thank you, and thank you for doing another term.
Well, thank you for the kind words. Honestly, I reached a point this summer that I said, I can't do this anymore. And I went to council and said, there's too many pieces, I can't do it anymore. And you know what they did? They said, I'll help with this, I'll help with that, I'll help with that, and it makes it doable. So thank you to everyone. Anything else? Otherwise, let's... Well, okay, I was going to pray first, but we can adjourn, then pray. There's a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Okay. In a second, somewhere. So, let's close with the Lord's Prayer, then we'll adjourn. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Meeting adjourned. Go forth with joy.